If you had just 10 minutes to change your life, would you use them for yourself, or for a stranger? That's the question Daniel never thought he'd have to answer, until the day he walked away from the biggest job interview of his life, and straight into the path of a woman who looked completely lost. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But in the next 2 hours, his choice would cost him everything he'd worked for, and give him something far greater. Before I tell you how a single act of kindness turned a struggling single dad into the man he was always meant to be, make sure you like this video and subscribe, because trust me, by the end, you'll believe in miracles again. Daniel Reeves woke up that Tuesday with a pounding heart and a head full of plans, the kind of day he'd been waiting for ever since life had knocked him down 2 years ago, when his wife passed away and left him alone to raise his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. He had ironed his one good shirt the night before, polished his scuffed shoes until they almost shined, and rehearsed answers to every interview question he could think of. This was it, the big one. A senior sales position at Harkins & Company, the kind of job that could pull him out of debt, get him out of the tiny apartment where every corner echoed with memories, and maybe even give Lily the life she deserved. He kissed her forehead while she was still half asleep, whispered, "Wish me luck, kiddo," and stepped into the brisk morning air with a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. The bus ride was long but familiar, and as the city skyline came into view, he kept checking his watch. He'd left early, determined not to risk being late. But just as he turned the corner toward the office building, a flurry of motion caught his eye, an older woman standing near the curb, clearly distressed, looking around like the world was closing in on her. A small crowd streamed past her, heads down, earbuds in, but Daniel slowed, torn between the ticking clock and the strange sight. Her hands trembled as she patted her pockets, muttering something about a phone, and then she looked up, her eyes glassy with panic. "Sir, please, can you help me? I think I'm lost. I can't find my driver." The words tumbled out between ragged breaths. Daniel glanced toward the glass doors of Harkins & Company, just 100 feet away, then back at her. She was maybe in her late 60s, dressed in an elegant navy coat that screamed wealth, but there was something vulnerable in her expression that made her look small. He hesitated. This was his shot, his future, but then he thought of Lily, and how he'd want someone to stop if she was ever in trouble. "All right, let's figure this out," he said, pulling his phone from his pocket. She explained she'd flown in for a meeting but got separated from her assistant when the car dropped her off at the wrong address. She didn't know the city, didn't know how to use ride apps, and her phone had died. "Do you know the address you were headed to?" Daniel asked. She nodded faintly, then rattled off a street name on the other side of town. He quickly checked a map, 30 minutes away in the opposite direction of his interview. His pulse quickened. "I'm supposed to be somewhere," he began, but she clutched his arm with surprising strength. "Please. I don't know who else to ask." He glanced again at the office door, the reception desk beyond it, the life he'd been chasing for 2 years, and then he made the choice. "All right. Let's go." They walked to the nearest taxi stand, but a sudden downpour drenched the street in seconds, and the cab seemed to vanish into thin air. So they ended up huddled under his small umbrella, navigating slick sidewalks, dodging traffic, and trading bits of conversation along the way. Her name was Margaret, she said, and she'd come to the city for an important business deal, though she didn't offer details. She seemed impressed when he mentioned he was a single dad. "Not many men would give up their time for a stranger," she remarked, studying him with a curious tilt of her head. By the time they reached her destination, a towering glass building in the financial district, Daniel's shirt was clinging to his back, his shoes squelched with every step, and his watch told him it was already 35 minutes past his interview time. "Thank you," Margaret said, her voice warm now. She reached into her bag, pulled out a sleek black card, and handed it to him. "Call me sometime." He glanced at it, a name, a company logo he didn't recognize, a phone number. She smiled faintly. "I have a feeling we'll meet again." And with that, she vanished into the building. Daniel stood there for a moment, rain dripping from his hair, his future sinking like the water swirling at his feet. By the time he arrived at Harkins and Company, the receptionist gave him a tight, apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Harkins has left for the day. We did try to call you." His stomach twisted. That was it, gone. He trudged home that evening, feeling the weight of what he'd lost pressing down on him like a stone. Lily greeted him at the door with a hopeful grin. "How'd it go, Dad?" He forced a smile, ruffling her hair. "Not the way I planned, kiddo. But I think I helped someone today." That night, as she fell asleep, he sat by her bed, wondering if he'd been foolish, wondering if kindness really was worth the cost. Little did he know, the woman he'd walked halfway across the city for wasn't just any stranger, she was a CEO with the power to rewrite his story completely. And she wasn't done with him yet. So if you're still watching this, make sure you like this video and subscribe. 3 days passed, and Daniel had almost convinced himself he'd never hear from Margaret again. He was scanning job boards at the kitchen table when his phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Reeves? This is Margaret Langford," the voice said warmly. "I'd like you to come to my office today." Curiosity wrestled with caution, but within an hour he was standing in the lobby of Langford Enterprises, a company whose name he'd seen in business headlines but never imagined stepping into. Margaret met him herself, dressed sharply, her earlier vulnerability replaced by an air of command. "I owe you more than thanks," she began. "That morning, I was on my way to a meeting that decided the future of my company. If you hadn't helped me, I would have lost it. I admire people who put kindness before gain, and I happen to need someone like that." She slid a folder across the desk, an offer letter. A position far better than the one he'd missed. The salary was triple what he'd hoped for, with benefits that would change Lily's life. Daniel sat there, stunned, before stammering, "Why me?" Margaret smiled. "Because in business, you can teach skills. You can't teach heart. And you've already proven you have it." When he came home that night, Lily's eyes widened as he told her the news. "See, kiddo," he said softly. "Sometimes, losing one dream makes room for a bigger one." And to everyone watching, like this video and subscribe, because kindness really can change everything.